Welcome to Get Serious. Let's do another rundown of some additional notes from that $100 million affiliate or money model affiliate launch live event with Alex Hormozi. Again, I've done a number of these. I keep reviewing my notes here, and it's just astonishing, again, kind of the quality of notes and insights. And, for a one-day event, it might have been the best one that I've attended so far. So again, if you want to catch up from some of the previous ones that I've noted, go and check the podcast backlog. Again, this was a format of fireside chats with Alex and then open mic audience Q&A that were all kind of voted upon from members in the audience here. So, just pretty much straight questions from one of the best marketers and entrepreneurs writ large in the world. I think it's kind of indisputable. This was also in one of the better fireside chats. This guy was asking really insightful questions, and again, I think Hormozi is so good at using or trying to boil down certain words and concepts to what the actual underlying meaning is. And so this guy was kind of asking more about just brand building in general. And Alex really defined brand as being teaching at scale, which I found very eloquent. Again, just it's pithy and actually means something tangible and concrete, and where it's really just an overlap of reach as well as influence. And so I think that that's just something kind of critical to keep in mind here, and where probably too many folks think about brand as just getting your name out there. But if you don't have the inherent value add that you're providing to your audience, whether they're really, when you're saying teaching at scale too, it's really from the educational side. Again, I think, for any type of content production or product production, it either needs to be entertaining or educational. One is going to be that primary force. So really in this case, we're thinking more educational, which most brands will be. Entertainment probably has a higher possible ceiling, but if we think of sports or music and so forth, you're not really teaching at scale there. You can probably reach a lot more people. So that would need to be defined a bit differently, but pretty much probably everybody listening to this, or pretty much any business owner, is going to be more within the educational space compared to entertainment outside of a handful of industries. And it's probably harder to crack the entertainment side too. Again, probably higher ceiling, but lower chance of success rate to do that. And so, again, when you're trying to overlap your reach, which would be possible size your audience and influence there, giving your audience a reason to actually be paying attention to you. So I really think that's just kind of critical to keep in mind for branding, where again, so many people think, it's just name out there, the goodwill, but how do you get the goodwill in the first place if you don't have a really good product and service? So that inherent value add moat that you are building is and maintaining a reputation of consistent quality. Again, it's the boring hard work to actually build a real brand. And this particular marketer who was on the fireside chat, he was asking more about speaking circuits, and where this guy actually had more of a negative impression of Hormozi for quite a while, because Alex had gone, they didn't name the names, but he was on a speaker circuit where some of the other speakers were more fraudulent. Again, no surprise within kind of the internet marketing sphere. And so, you risk being associated with potentially other more unsavory folks, even if you're running a solid business yourself. And Alex was also asked about, I guess he was more recently on Logan Paul's larger podcast, and is it just seems a bit of a different overlap of audiences, and he's not necessarily negative here. It's just that seemed to be an interesting choice. And so Alex kind of went into some of his decision making for whether he would go on any speaking circuits or other people's podcasts. And he's for the Logan Paul one, deemed it pretty low risk, where maybe some folks will consider, hey, you shouldn't be doing that necessarily. I'm not really sure how controversial Lopa. I'm not as familiar with his work, but I know he's done like a lot of the YouTuber type thing, some levels of controversy and so forth. But I'm not as familiar. But Alex is like, yeah, there's a decent chance, like given Logan's huge audience, that he can grow his own audience, meaning Alex's, more so than risking, the audience that he's already built up. So it's like, yeah, it was calculated for sure. And so you have to kind of weigh that accordingly. But he said, yeah, there's a number of podcasts out there, different brands where he thinks, yeah, it's going to, the negatives are going to outweigh the potential positives from being associated with them. So something to keep in mind. And he says like, he pretty much doesn't do speaking circuits anymore unless like he's the sole speaker at something. Just because, again, like they were going, over this where there's, some brand hits potentially if you're just, unfortunately associated with some of the other folks that might be speaking in the internet marketing space. Like a lot of folks lie. And, they might claim, they're like, earned $100 million. So then Alex will point out, it's like 100 million over 10 plus years. He was running like a $20 million business, and that was like funding a lot of lifestyle. So like after taxes, take home all of that, net worth is probably, still substantial, but probably less than like 10 mil, 15 mil, which is, not the same as like when you call yourself, you're a $100 million entrepreneur. Says, there's just a lot of that going on. And the fact that Alex has just understandably a bigger business than most of the other speakers, like just objectively, like he has more to lose from that standpoint, as well, from just reputation with other folks who are fudging the numbers, so to speak there. So I thought that was an interesting way to think about it. And like even for some folks were asking questions during this live event, like, hey, why'd you cut out like the affiliate announcement portion of your live launch? And he's like, dude, it's nothing against you guys really, but it's like he just the downside he thought was just too strong, where some of these affiliates who might have been like winning were then going to be claiming that they had a specific partnership with acquisition.com and so forth by being announced during the live launch. He's like, yeah, that's just, they don't want to take that legal risk by having some, false assertion being made there. It's like, yeah, he just has to be careful. And you see that during like all of Alex's live presentations or doing, the launch, and how much legal disclaimer language is there. Cause it's just like, obviously they're including that because they must have just been hit by so many lawsuits and probably still get hit by lawsuits behind the scenes just so routinely. Alex has mentioned like they're just, he has a like full, at least 4-time legal folks who are just defending their IP like every single day to go after. Because again, there's like the bigger you get, more people are just going to go after you. You just have to defend against that. Something to kind of keep in mind there as well. The bigger we get, hopefully, the more you're just going to have to be aware of who you're associating with. And then moving on to another fireside chat. Some guys like, yeah, I just want to be like the best marketer in the world. And he's like already doing good, right? You got a top 10 affiliate spot for the, Hormozi's book launch. And, Alex is just like, yeah, if you want to be the best marketer, like just be the best marketer. Like the way to do that is you just have to build proof to display that. Like no amount of hacks are going to get you to that spot. It's just like, yeah, you have to do the work. So we know that message again and again and again. But like folks are still trying to find shortcuts. Like again, it's just human nature to try to get to that top spot without necessarily doing that hard, boring work. So worth mentioning that as well. And then, somebody was asking kind of just the portfolio construction, both personally and through acquisition.com. And I think it was pretty interesting from that standpoint to where It's kind of barbell approach to, I think Ferris, maybe Naval have mentioned that as well. I forget where, but Hormozi says like, especially in this AI oriented world, it's like, what are sure things that are, regardless of where AI goes to, that people are still going to need and desire. And then, what are some of those outsized bets that, could take advantage of where AI is just taking all of us into the future here. And he's like, for sure bets, which makes up the majority of his portfolio. Like 80% of the investments, like, it's like more focused on IRL community type things. Like, people, regardless of AI, like you're going to need a place to live. People will want to have some sense of community. They want to spend, time together, either in person or digitally. So like those are just key features of human life that are not going to be going anywhere or have like a very low likelihood of disappearing, and within our lifetimes at least. If we're like uploaded into computers, that could be a different conversation here, but for probably the next 100 years it's probably unrealistic. So it makes more sense to still take sure bets like that. And he says 20% of his bets are more outsized potential outcome, almost more VC type bets, which largely center on AI, because anything that isn't like fitting within that sure bet category probably is going to be influenced by AI. So like it helps you consolidate what types of investment packages you can even consider there. So just mentioning that one, and I'll actually wrap that one other point too. Which I just, I'll end on it. And like, as an audience, we were kind of cringing. And again, like a lot of these affiliates and entrepreneurs were younger as well too. But somebody was asking, try to ask it respectfully. he was saying, Alex, you have so much going for you in your life, and you've done so well here. But like, why don't you have kids, or why don't you have a family? And it's just like, that's a tricky question to ask really anyone. And me, like as a parent, I would never really ask another person that. You don't know their own circumstances. Like I'll always say, hey, you guys have kids or anything? Just like check, is there a relational point? But it's not like, hey, why don't you have any, or are you planning on having any? I just don't ask those type of questions. And like Hormozi took a beat to like use it to where he wasn't, just kind of like smashing the affiliate across from him, but he was using it more of like a moment to share a lesson of like, that is just not a question you should ask anybody, because there's no good answer for it. And like, I just generally agree. And like, he basically boiled it down to like, okay, because the only way, there's really only two responses to that. If, you ask somebody why they don't have kids, it's either like they would prefer not to have them, like not really a fan of kids or anything. He's like, if I say that, I'm gonna offend or demean like all the parents in the audience here. So like that's not advantageous for me to say. Or on the flip side, it's like there's some type of health issue going on in the back end. That's like between myself or Layla, or anybody you might ask that question to, that could have some type of infertility, who knows what, which again we know is like very common, especially as folks put having kids to later ages, for the most part, generationally. And so he's like, and that's not like a conversation that I want to make any of you guys privy to either. And so he's like, he kind of has to end it there, because there's again no good way to answer either of those, or like it's just too private to even share. And it's like, so I don't ask folks that that type of question. So just a word out there, because again, us as an audience, we were kind of cringing as that was going on. But I think Alex very respectfully answered that question. Like he didn't fully sidestep it. He's like, these are the only two responses. Neither of them are good, and I'm not going to tell you which one it is. I kind of got a kick out of that, especially just kind of sitting in the audience there, hearing it. Word to the wise for that as well too. for any of you who have ever asked folks those type of questions. I know they come up, maybe family asks it and stuff too, like, hungry for kids. I get it. You could do a whole type of podcast and thoughts on that for parenting writ large. So all of that in mind here, we'll be back with more lessons soon. SeriousLand.capital for any of your funding needs, $50K purchase price and above. Land Daily Diligence Facebook group. Looking forward to next time. Subscribe and share. Take care, everybody. Bye.